Welcome to the Institute of World Culture program. We are going to be sharing a beautiful program today, and we're very fortunate to have Shefali Vatsa here, who you will hear more about in a moment or two. The program is called The Goddess's Call to Dance, the experience of garba dancers during Navaratri. And I am Jerry Lewin, and I'm just being the chair for this program. And the Institute of World Culture is dedicated to promoting fellowship between all beings. And the aims that we follow and are the basis of all of our programs can be found in our brochure. The aims of world culture are here inside, and they have beautiful meaning, very deep and worthy of reflection. And you can get this online, and you can also pick one up at the back table. And online, it's worldculture.org, by the way. Aim 5 is particularly relevant to today's topic. That is, to deepen awareness of the universality of man's spiritual striving and its rich variety of expression in the religions, philosophies, and literatures of humanity. If you are new to the Institute, you may sign up to receive a monthly newsletter by either at the back of the table, there's a sign-up sheet, or you can just simply email jerry@worldculture.org, Gerry. Also, for those of you who may be new to Concord Hall, masks are optional, and the restroom is to your right. Our program today, The Goddess's Call to Dance, the experience of garba dancers during Navaratri, is a traditional dance ceremony observed in India and around the world. We will hear about the spiritual significance of the festival. How does it preserve a culture and strengthen personal and communal integration? So I'll give you just a few facts, objective ones, about our speaker, and then I will invite Judy to say a few more words as they know each other personally. So Shefali Vatsa is a graduate of UC Berkeley in history and Pepperdine with an MA in clinical psychology, as well as a PhD from Pacifica Graduate Institute in Santa Barbara. She has participated in the Festival of Navaratri for most of her life. At Pacifica, she chose today's topic as the focus of her dissertation. So now I'd like to invite Judy Salzman to say a few comments about Shefali. Thank you.
Hello, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Shefali Vatsa, whose parents were born in India in the city of Mumbai, and whose doctoral dissertation I was pleased to read and to be on her committee at Pacifica Graduate Institute. I wish to say that it is a profound dissertation which had much to say about the wonderful and amazing effects of garba dancing, and also the preservation of Indian culture and the preservation of the Hindu tradition, as well as Jains and Sikhs and other people of Indian descent who are members of the Indian Club, as well as many of us who are of other descents. And the India Club of the Central Coast has done a great deal to preserve this wonderful tradition of Navaratri, which will begin very shortly, 9 sacred nights, and also to preserve the Hindu tradition, and it is part of the aim of the Institute of World Culture to honor all traditions throughout the world and the religious freedom that allows us to honor all peoples and what they stand for. So I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Vatsa today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. I just wanted to say that Judy, Dr. Saltzman, has been very supportive in encouraging me to present this topic, and she was my reader for my dissertation research, and she was very helpful and supported me completely. So thank you very much, Judy, for all of your support and your encouragement. And thank you, Jerry, for the introduction as well. Let me begin by saying Navaratri, yes, my dissertation title and the research I did was called Navaratri, the Goddess's Call to Dance. So let's begin. It is a Hindu festival. It honors the many manifestations of the goddess over the course of 9 days and nights. And Navaratri actually means 9 nights. Nava, 9, and Ratri nights. And the festival actually takes place 4 to 5 times a year, with the spring and fall occurrences being the most well-known. The fall Navaratri, however, is called Sharad Navaratri, and in particular, it's the most widely celebrated throughout India and within Indian communities around the world. The specific methods of honoring the goddess during this time, they vary. They're not all the same amongst the different regions of India, but all of them focus on puja, which is worship of the goddess, and involve traditional chants and retellings of her divine exploits from the Devi Mahatmaya, or Chandipath, as it's known. Garba in the Indian western state of Gujarat, in particular, which is where my family comes from, Navaratri is celebrated with 9 nights of inclusive garba dancing. And so this is a little bit a different spin on it, where the entire community is welcome to participate in circle dancing around images of the Divine Mother who welcomes all. There are many different varieties of garba dance. Some involve intricate back and forth whirling movements. Others are basic rhythmic claps and simple forward motion. There are modern versions that can look like energetic running and jumping. Creative arm and hand gestures may accompany the whirling and or leg movement. The most important feature, though, in all of the dance variations is that participants have to move in a counterclockwise position around images or symbols of the goddess. Garba music. So most of the traditional folk songs are in Gujarati, the language, and were meant to be sung actually by dancers. They often honor the goddess or detail exploits of Krishna, who is an avatar of Vishnu, who is the prime manifestation of divinity in the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna is a subject of the Garba songs because he's associated with dance. He was known for dancing with the lovely milkmaids, the gopis in the forest. So sometimes the songs are about him and his playfulness. And then they also have Hindi film songs from Bollywood movies that are also popular, and they've sort of set these to Garba beat rhythms, and they've modernized them and kind of done that. Musical instrument band accompaniment and singers with microphones are usually the current norm now. That's what they do now. The Garba attire. So what do people usually wear? Participants actually wear a wide range of clothing. They might be wearing something similar to what I'm wearing, which is like a chanya choli top, like a long skirt with a top and some draped clothing over it. Sometimes they wear simple, a top and a pant, like a salwar kameez or a Punjabi style long shirt with a loose pant combo. And they even wear Western style dresses and jeans. That's also in the future things that I'll be showing. We'll be showing some videos. You'll be able to see that, the variety of clothing that people are wearing. Men wear the top and pant more fitted, and sometimes they also wear traditional folk attire that's very striking and noticeable. It's not as popular because it's very noticeable. Like there'll be flared ruffles at the elbow, wrist, or waist, and again, when you see that, it looks very costumey, but it's very folkish, and some people really enjoy wearing that, whereas others would be like, no, I'm not going to wear that. And different venues will attract different styles of creative expression, and the clothing choices will reflect this. Depending on the venue, people will maybe wear jeans or they'll dress up more. What are the exact Garba venues and settings? Well, there are many different places where Garba is danced or played. Outdoors, under the stars is ideal, often under a canopy or delineated space such as a mandap. And in India, this is the norm, although indoor venues are also used. So in India, dancers will often be dancing, their feet will hit sand, dirt, paved roads, small pebbles, and stones and grass. So they'll be kind of actually, you know, sometimes it's painful. And in the United States, the reverse is actually true. Garba takes place mostly in community centers, gymnasiums, halls, and they move on hardwood floors, tiles, carpet, kind of man-made materials. And when I was doing some of the interviews, somebody actually told me, one of the participants mentioned that it was harder for her to dance in the American venues because the floors didn't have as much give as the dirt. So I thought that was really interesting. She was more familiar with dancing on the actual, on the dirt roads. That was easier for her. Noise pollution is an issue in some places because garba can be very loud, and when it goes on all night, this can be problematic. So I think that's why even in India, sometimes they're having it indoors and whatnot in different times. And the number of garba dancers can be very small, just 10 to 15 people, or that can include up to thousands of people, and you'll see that in the videos that come up. The center of the circle. So at the center of the garba dance hall are images and pictures, or an idol of the mother goddess, surrounded by items used in her worship. Sometimes there will be partly covered containers with prasad, food offerings that will be close by, and musicians are also often seated in the middle or nearby on raised platforms. In some venues, the circles closest to the center will be moving the fastest, while at other times in the circle closest to the goddess, the young children and slower dancers will be circling in a more relaxed manner. And the center is always the focus of the dancers, and they align themselves accordingly. Okay, now here we will start off with the garba dances. I thought it would be good to get you on the same page and see what this looks like. So we have a few different clips. So that was one image of dancing and dancers that were sort of in an outdoor space and kind of wearing traditional clothing. This next clip will be in a community center in the United States, I believe. But this is very, very common. This is a very common sort of venue or look. And then we'll just get to the next one. So I wanted you to see the variety of different types of places. Just the first hour. This is also in a community hall, but it's just, there's so many more people, so it can become more. Since the sound is bad, we can this is an example of it. It's also indoors, but it becomes crowded. Yeah, the sound doesn't pass muster, we'll get rid of it. And then we have one is, I really was excited to find this clip because this one shows sort of younger people, and they're not necessarily wearing traditional attire, not most of them. They're wearing casual clothing, but they're very enthusiastically participating. I thought their energy was really nice to see.
बेटोरे मोर का बोले हिमारा हैड़ा हरो हार मारा दल डाल रे जाय जानवर जीवता हनारे मोर का बोले मोर का बोले मोर का बोले मोर का बोले ने मोर का बोले मारे टोडले बेटो रे मोर का बोले मारे टोडले बेटो रे मोर का बोले
For some reason, when we broadcast these, we're having trouble with the sound. If you just play these on a computer, they'd be very loud.
They're getting a good idea of it. So this is where they get all the fast. That's a sense of the energetic sort of young men dancing. And I don't know if you have the next clip of the women.
But how long does that go on?
The dancing? Sometimes it will go on for hours, and I don't think that everybody necessarily dances for hours at the time. They might take breaks, but some people will dance all night. They'll continue dancing for hours, and sometimes it will go up till 3, 4 in the morning. That was in India, maybe a long time ago. We don't do that here. I wouldn't have the energy for that. Dance a little bit and you take your water break and whatnot. But some of the dancers have quite a bit of energy, so they'll continue for some time. To be fair to the young ladies, I included this one now. This is the young ladies sometimes will do more twirling motions, like they'll twirl back and forth along the mat. There are a few more. This one will show you something that I think is very interesting, actually. It's a kind of a sign of how the popularity of garba is becoming, it's becoming a little bit commercialized. People will be putting, having dance bands and professional singers coming and singing for, venues such as, Navaratri, or sometimes people will even have it for weddings. They'll have a performer come and dance. So that might be interesting to see this singer as well. Just to give you a taste of the different. So that gives you an example of what that would look like too. Then again, there are people dancing in the halls together, and it becomes sort of a production. Like they'll choose different singers, who's going to be singing, etc. They'll pick specific singers for things. Here's another venue. This is outdoors. This is in India in a different setting. Observing garba is also something that people go to do and see, and they participate. They don't necessarily have to participate by dancing. You can also observe and also gain benefits observing. They also have at this time performances that they put on stage. College-age students or younger kids and family members, people will present performances in honor of the goddess. So they'll have performances, and this is a performance that is like a garba dance that they've specifically choreographed to show on stage. So we'll just show a few. Sometimes they'll have competitions, but they're all in honor of the goddess. And then just to show you a little bit of, I don't know about the quality of this audio, but this is a dandiya ras performance, which is the energetic dancing with the sticks that they often do after the group prayer. They'll have the garba dancing, then they'll have a group prayer and arti with the flame, and then they'll often begin this kind of a dandiya ras dance with sticks. And some people can be very energetic, so I thought it would be good to show a small bit of this.
want to disappear?
Well, that's YouTube. There we go.
All you
I
have to
picked this
do
group,
is point.
even though it's maybe not as clear, because I felt like this group was very energized. They were highly energetic and very coordinated, almost, and they're a college group, and I believe they probably won an award of some kind. But I thought they did such a nice job in their choreography and their synchronization. So it's nice to see that. And they're wearing traditional clothing and attire for the men and women. I also like the men's costumes, as you saw in some of the earlier pieces. Some of the men's costumes can be a little interesting. I like the way they you're like, yes. It's fun.
Well,
It's very lively.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, they're very, very lively.
Plus we had sound.
Yeah, I know. Hey, it was working. That was wonderful. And this is another one. And I thought this will show you kind of the large number of people who actually participate. And it's a very organized garba dance that takes place in India. I believe it's by the United Way of Baroda. And Baroda is Vadodara. It's a city in Gujarat. And there so many people dance this, and they keep it quite coordinated and organized. It's pretty remarkable. So we can watch a little bit more of this now. See if we can find out. Then we can do this. Should we do this now? Or maybe we can do this at the end. Or we can
Do it later?
What do you think? Yeah, we can. Or we can show it now. We can show it down. That's fine. And this is an arthi. Sorry, change that up.
Go ahead.
So this is an arthi, which after the dancing takes place in the middle of the night, they'll often have a prayer ritual to the goddess. It'll be with flame and like a divine light, and they'll be chanting and singing and bells. And so this is an example of that, and it's one of a larger scale one as well. So I thought you can see this experience. So after the garba dancing, you can see how people gather together and pray.
આપણા હૃદયમાં પણ આદ્યશક્તિની આરાધનાના પર્વે આપણે દીપ પ્રગટાવીએ અને માના શરણે જઈએ.
जय
so that kind of gives you an idea of how it would conclude in the middle part, and then they might continue on with the dancing or do Ras Garba. So I'll continue. So that was an example. I hope that gave you a good visual of what the dancing is like. So basically, again, the dancing, however, it takes place around the goddess. So who is this goddess who is being worshipped during the festival of Navaratri? All of the celebration, this joy, this coming together, who is being celebrated? Well, this goddess, she has many names and many forms. Devi, Mata, which means mother, Durga, Parvati, Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and she has many other names as well, depending on if people are worshiping her for 9 nights and attributing a different goddess for each of the nights, or just having the idea of, for the first 3 nights, she's worshipped maybe as Durga, Parvati, Kali, and then the next 3 is Lakshmi, and the next 3 is Saraswati. So there are different ways of worshiping the goddess with her different names. The information that we have on the goddess comes from a Hindu text called the Devi Mahatmaya or Chandipath. And this Devi Mahatmaya is Sanskrit for the glory of the goddess. And also it's called Durga Saptashati, which means 700 verses to Durga. It's the main text of the Shakta sect of Hinduism, the branch that worships the goddess Shakti in all of her powerful forms. This text is used in pujas, yagnas, prayers, and festivals, including Navaratri. And it comes from chapters 81 to 93 of the Markandeya Puran, where the sage Markandeya is explaining the creation and evolution of the universe to a disciple. The text is viewed as both myth and fact, and there are 3 primary parts to the text. In the first episode, the first Charita, a king and a merchant who have fallen on difficult times after having been betrayed and rejected enter the ashram or safe haven of a sage. He mentions the goddess, and the king and the merchant ask for details about this goddess. In the first episode, the goddess is described as Mahamaya, who possesses the power of illusion. She awakens Lord Vishnu when she's praised, and the Lord then fights 2 demons. He defeats them when she causes the demons' minds to become confused. They foolishly try to outsmart the Lord, and then they're destroyed. So this tale is about the folly of the ego and the hubris that leads to its demise. Devi is here acting passively in the background, playing a key role that turns the tide in favor of Vishnu, who does the actual battling. So the goddess in this first part is presented as powerful and controlling things behind the scenes. But she's powerful, but the agent is the male god. In the second episode, the goddess is formed from the anger of Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma at Indra's request, and she emerges as a powerful divine light that coalesces into a female form. She effortlessly defeats the demon generals of Mahishasura's army. Her ganas, were her supporters, and her mount, a fierce lion, join her in battle. And so she's just ferocious, and she's powerful in this one. She vanquishes Mahishasura even when he shapeshifts several times. He's destructive and out of control, but the goddess is always composed in this. He is eventually killed when she pins his buffalo neck down with her foot and pierces his side with a spear, beheading him before he escapes in human form. So she just gets into the battle herself this time. She is praised, and she grants the gods a boon, and they request that she destroy misfortune whenever she's remembered and bless those who recite her praises. So again, in this episode, Devi is acting on her own. She's radiant and resplendent, and she's owning all of her powers. And so this is, again, very important, because the way she received her powers, all of the male gods, they channeled their power, and she accepted that into herself, and she accepted that energy. In the third episode, the Asuras Shumba and Nishumbha are destroying the 3 worlds. The gods praise the Devi, remembering her promise to come, and she appears before them as Parvati. Out of her body, 2 forms appear, a light one, Ambika, and a dark one, Kalika Kali. So both the light and dark forces of the Devi are activated, and she recognizes that both of those are important. Demon servants, Chanda and Munda, are sent to acquire her for their leader, and she responds with a very clever challenge. She will only wed the one who defeats her in battle. Anytime I read this, it sounds very modern to me, because in fact, she's not really bargaining or being helpless with them. She has no intention of capitulating. She's a very powerful woman, goddess woman, female figure. The villains insult and mock her before beginning their attack. They think she'll be easy to defeat. After many ferocious and frankly gory bloodbath battles, including a thunderous fight in the sky, it ends with Devi slamming her opponent down and spearing him through the chest. In this episode, one of the ways she achieves success is that she projects and multiplies those male aspects of herself that she took from the male gods in the second episode She reclaims them as her own in female form. So she had taken them within herself and become strong. Now she sends them out, multiplies herself, sends them out into the battlefield in a female form. After her victory, she claims, "I am alone here in the world. Who else is there besides me? Behold, O vile one, these are but projections of my own power, now entering back into me." So the promise of the goddess. The goddess promises to come to the aid of all that remember her, and she predicts that she will return to defeat foes again. And the ending of the Devi Mahatmaya, it ends with giving specific details on why and when to pray to the goddess, and reveals the fates of the king and the merchant who came to her for safe haven, or to the ashram. They begin, the king and the merchant then begin to actively pray to the goddess on the riverbank. They think it's a good idea. They're impressed with the stories that the sage told them, and they pray to the goddess. And after 3 years of intense worship, she appears before them and grants each of them a boon. The king chooses the dharmic path to bravely fight and regain his freedom, his kingdom, and to rule another more powerful kingdom in the next life, while the merchant chooses spiritual knowledge leading to liberation and union with the divine. So this is again giving a glimpse of what the goddess can do. She's leading them to spiritual knowledge, enlightenment, to success in the world in a dharmic way, in a positive way. Now the Navaratri festival, those who have grown up or have yearly heard these tales, they're filled with admiration and awe for the goddess. So as they're dancing this, they're aware of these stories and these tales, and those are in their mind. That's setting the stage for the devotees. She's a source of protection and strength who saves not only men and women, but the gods. Devotees seek to honor her in ways that celebrate her powerful feminine nature. And during the Navaratri festival, this is done by planting various grains, and their growth is viewed as evidence of her fertile touch. Fasting and prayer have also been mentioned, and there are different types of fasts that are taken. And now I will go into the specifics of the dances that we just saw. Dance as worship. So dance as worship is a way of fully giving oneself up to the divine, surrendering all facets of one's being. Dancers of various traditions humble themselves in the face of the mysterious unknown and the even more mysterious unknowable. And this is common in many cultures. 9 nights. Why 9? Well, why night? I'll get to the why 9 next. So it's changing the focus from the day where the material interests and concerns predominate, and honoring the numinous mystery hours, the dark and the unknown. We're also recognizing a dependence on divine or higher forces, a need for the light, as human sensory powers are very limited and vulnerable at night. Human beings are basically weak at night. Now with the advent of modern times and electricity, we're brave and we do all things at night, but in the past that wasn't the case. So recognizing and celebrating the nighttime was a reminder that we need divine help. Surviving fears of the unknown through togetherness, and allowing a relaxation of daytime rules and divisions that separate. It also encouraged a change from the normal routine. So these were all things that were possible at night. And why 9? Well, the spiritual number in Hinduism is 9. Hinduism has a variety of several spiritual numbers. 8 is a spiritual number. The Ashtami is the 8th day of Navaratri. That's often a fasting time or special day. 9 is a spiritual, in numerology, 9 is a number that signifies a spiritual life path, and it's also the full completion of numbers before returning to 1 again with the 10. So I think that's probably why that's an important number, but I didn't delve too far into the numerology of it. Individual worship. So individual of the worship of the goddess during Navaratri may include fasting for 9 days, certain days on the 8th day, or partial fasting. It may involve inviting the goddess to reside in the home temple, ritual puja and worship, prayer, reading or chanting of holy texts, yagna, fire worship, sitting garba, and that's a different kind of garba. It's called betno garba or something along those lines. It's where the word means sitting, and it's where people would just sing devotional songs and bhajans and hymns in praise of the goddess. So that's another form of garba, where people would just sit and chant and clap, and they wouldn't dance. People meditate during this time. They do go on pilgrimages and visit temples, and many also honor or empower young girls with prayer and gifts. On the 8th or the 9th day, they'll gather 8 or 9 girls and give them gifts and offer them kind of a small prayer. Community worship. Dancing around the goddess elevates the surroundings. Subconsciously and consciously, dancers become attuned to their higher selves. The goddess images and decor affect our sight. The music affects our sound, what we can hear. There are scents of incense, which is the smell. Foods or lack thereof, often specific fasting foods, will influence our taste. And the dance movements through touch and within our own self, learning how our body movement is, they're all geared to reminding participants of the divine. So the senses are brought to heal in a sense by taking them out of their daytime comfort zone. They're literally brought into the dark. And once there, they're presented with edited spiritual versions of sensory information. So it's, again, turning things on its head. Instead of allowing the senses free daytime reign, we're now disciplining them. We're putting them in the nighttime where they're vulnerable, and then we're offering them divine sensory images and experiences. And so the importance of the divine is thus reinforced on all sensory levels. The mandap as a world microcosm. So the mandap is oftentimes a delineated space with 4 points under which the garba, and in which the garba circle takes place. Everyone is welcome to join in the dancing or to simply watch. Friends, current and former acquaintances, enemies, strangers. An underlying order and harmony have to be achieved in order for the dance to take place also. Cooperation with other dancers is necessary, especially with that large circle. It was amazing how they were able to keep them going, and everybody intuitively and instinctively stayed in their own circular path. That was very impressive. Sometimes smaller venues cannot achieve the same thing, so they were very organized. Dancers come and go out of the dance at any time. There's not a set moment when you begin and end the dance, just as people in our lives do. A variety of steps and speeds are available. Not all dances are available to all at once. There's a great deal of room on the garba, in the garba space, but there are some limits. Timing plays an important role, as do age, health, energy, skill, motivation, intent, moods, and companions. So although the dance is available at any time, people are also aware of their limitations. They're not always able to access every dance. Sometimes one of the participants mentioned you had to jump in at the right time. If there were people you wanted to dance next to or a specific dance you wanted to participate in, you had to make your move, otherwise it would be too late and the circle would move on. Again, similar to life. You have to know when to step in and when to step out. So garba is played as best as can be in the way that resonates most in the moment. It can be very here and now, a very here and now type of glimpse of our current interaction with life. Garba symbolism. So garba, the actual word, comes from the Sanskrit word garba, which means womb. And as dancers circle the goddess, I feel that the circumference of the outermost circle, it can almost be visualized as the arms of the mother goddess, embracing and holding all the participants within her cosmic womb. Dancers enter her protective circle as individuals and then experience personal and shared moments of unity and acceptance via cathartic movement. Dancers then emerge from the circle, energized and joyful. They feel rebirth through the reawakening of their sense of individuality. At least some of them feel this sense, and this was my interpretation. The circle then, as recognized by many spiritual and cultural traditions, though one of the simplest of all images, it's simultaneously one of the most powerful. So now we'll go into a little bit more about what the circle actually symbolizes. Circle dances are basically symbols of universal inclusion. They have existed for millennia. A circle automatically creates a sense of community, as several people are required to create a circle. It's hard to dance in a circle of one, although people do whirl among themselves on their own axis as well. And all are equal in the circle. There is no one who is the definitive leader. It's very democratic. There is an automatic numinous quality associated with the circle because it embraces empty space that is charged by the energetic movements of the dancers. And this brings to mind the movement of atomic particles orbiting through vast spaces. Circle dances have at times also consciously reflected the movement of the stars. So the circle then, it represents phenomenon found both in the natural world on both the macro and the microcosmic levels. Now we're coming to Carl Jung, and he was a Swiss physician who lived from 1875 to 1961. He was originally a member of Sigmund Freud's inner circle, and he later founded the Analytical School of Psychology. His theories focus on the idea of the wholeness of the psyche by creating links between the personal and collective unconscious. And I refer to him because his depth psychological theories have been a major influence on my research, and I included him in that. He believed that by using imagination, a flow of psychic energy was released. He preferred the active approach, and he believed that dancing, painting, and sculpting, which was his personal choice, provided this active approach. So consciously fantasizing also about something could also be an active mental approach. So he also felt this was also a way of being active if you were actively visualizing something. This active approach to fantasies, when maintained, would lead to creativity and healing. This was his belief. And he called this process active imagination. The circle as the mandala. So Jung introduced the concept of the mandala to the Western world. Mandala means circle in Sanskrit. And Jung originally noticed that some of his patients who were experiencing extreme distress, where the psyche was in danger of falling apart, they began spontaneously painting or dreaming of circular objects. He believed that they were being given visions of wholeness and symmetry to help them achieve balance. Mandalas then, according to Jung, are essentially healing. The unconscious produces them for the purpose of bringing about healing. Dancing in a circular pattern then can also bring about healing. Jung also believed that psychic development follows a circuitous route and that all of the steps he had taken in his life were leading him to the center of himself. So that also seemed to resonate with the center of the dance circle. And he stated that movement is only another name for mastery. Psychologically, this circular course would be the turning in a circle about oneself, by means of which, apparently, all sides of the personality become implicated. The poles of light and darkness are made to rotate. There comes a change from day to night. So he felt it was powerful in this sense. And tapas is inner heat in Sanskrit. Jung further stated, thus the circular movement has also the moral significance of activating all of the light and dark forces of the human nature, and with them all the psychological opposites of whatever kind they may be. That means nothing else than self-knowledge by means of self-incubation. So when I had originally read this quote, I felt that it was very powerful because he's stating in psychological terms what people are doing when they're dancing. In the circle, you're navigating, when you move in a circle, or when you draw a circle or paint or sculpt circular objects, you're going through all of the things, the full 360 degrees. You're balancing yourself by touching each and every point in a circle. You're becoming balanced. If you hit one point, eventually you will hit the opposite point of the circle. And that's what they mean by balance, that you will, it won't remain unbalanced. You will make sure that you hit each aspect of the circle, each dimension or point of yourself. And that's what the circle dancing symbolizes. Engaging with each part of yourself. All of the opposites get activated and addressed. Oh my goodness, I think integration healing, I think I reversed these two slides, sorry about that. So, okay, so dance therapy and garba. Further research on this point, because I was very interested and excited what I read about Jung and how I felt that it correlated with the Navaratri festival. I read further and I wound up exploring dance and movement therapy. As well as Mary Stark Whitehouse's theory of authentic movement, which suggests that the act of being witnessed by a non-judgmental, nurturing observer is also considered to be healing. So in dance therapy, they found that certain types of dance and movement was healing to patients, and they also discovered that just being witnessed, having someone watch you dance, was powerful and healing. So this led to a further desire to explore how dancers experienced garba dance. I thought, well, people are dancing under the eye of the goddess. How this has a potential to be very healing and positive. It's a community circle dance that is consciously centered around the feminine divine. And this image of the divine is so empowered and strong, as well as loving and protective. The goddess embodies both her traditionally feminine and male aspects, and both her light and dark aspects, and represents a state of psychic wholeness and integration. So that this just resonated very strongly for me with what Jung had been writing. In the center of the garba circle, the Divine Mother is the ultimate witness of everything. So she's also the ultimate non-judgmental, nurturing observer, just observing the play of the dancers around. Integration. So based on this, I decided to study, took upon a qualitative study, and I studied text and analyzed data from interviews. I interviewed 12 participants, and also used Mustakas's heuristic method. And the reason I chose this method, it was a method of study that allowed for more of a subjective engagement. So my own personal opinions and reactions to the dance were part of the research. So there's a lot of subjectivity in my interpretations of what the participants what their experiences were and what my experiences were. I don't claim to be objective because it's too close to me, but I reported all of that. But I preferred this method because it allowed for that subjectivity. My results were described in The Goddess's Call to Dance, Experiences of Garba Dancers During the Festival of Navaratri, my dissertation. And the findings showed that individuals did actually benefit from their experiences of Garba dancing during Navaratri. None of the participants were actively suffering from major illnesses or anything of that nature, so I can't claim that they could reported any benefits in that way, but there were many instances of positive association with that. So personal integration was one of those. Garba dancers felt more aware of and connected to their personal identities. These identities were reinforced and strengthened. Their cultural identity, feeling more Indian and Gujarati, they felt connected to that. Their spiritual identity, feeling more religious and spiritual. Their creative identity, enjoying dressing up, dancing, singing, and rituals. On all of these levels, they felt more whole and centered after participating in the festival. Before, sometimes I remember even as a child, people would be hesitant maybe to go, oh, I don't want to go, or this and that. But after participating, people markedly feel connected to other people. You feel connected to your identity, your religion, your spirituality, and other people. So this was described as a positive experience by most, although sometimes the cultural identities reinforced created some dissonance with current lifestyles, such as when some dancers longed for the past. They didn't like the modernization or the big bands playing. They didn't like the type of venue. They didn't feel things were traditional enough, perhaps. So they were partly critical of the modern interpretations of the Garba music or methods of celebrating, and then this would cause, they didn't get as many positive benefits. There felt some dissonance with that, so it wasn't wholly positive. Communal integration. So Garba dancers felt more aware of and connected to other participants in their community. The dancing offered the dancers a chance to express their personal creativity alongside others, with the potential to transcend this personal identity. In the sense, they were just one of many, dancing and whirling in a colorful sea of humanity, as we saw in that last section, which was amazing to me. They were expressing their individual creativity, but it was kind of recognized very clearly because there were so many others that you're just one of many. So there's no real space for arrogance or showboating. You're enjoying, you're dancing, but there are many others are doing the same thing as you. So this cooperative creativity also took place with Garba dancing, as dancers worked on new dance styles or participated in similar dance steps. This again was mostly positive, as participants reported enjoying dancing with their friends, acquaintances, those they didn't particularly care for, as well as strangers. You just dance with whoever shows up. And then Arti, which we saw with the fire worship at the end, the ritual worship of the goddess accompanied by song, the ringing of bells and offerings of fire and incense, that also reinforces the sense of community and oneness because everybody's praying together at the end. And again, I would notice people who maybe didn't want to do that or only wanted to come for the fun times, or they didn't want to acknowledge that this was about the goddess, they would just kind of come in line and pray alongside. So it was again very people coming together. Finally, the Ras dances, stick dances that we saw a little bit of, with continually changing partners, offered participants a chance to consciously face and acknowledge members of their community and to affirm their individual identities within the context of their community. So the way I saw this was that Garba dancing was more of an individual personal creativity that you expressed with other people, and then after that you would line up face to face with partners and you're expressing, you're re-acknowledging, I'm part of the community, I'm a member, and here we are, and you're hitting sticks. And so it's more of a affirming yourself instead of being lost in the crowd. And under the watchful eye of the mother goddess. So these dances become especially meaningful and powerful when they're intentionally and consciously participated in. The natural benefits of dancing together in harmony with others, reaffirming personal, creative, cultural, and spiritual identities, as well as acknowledging and recommitting to a shared group identity, are uplifted and enhanced when undertaken in the presence of a representative of the divine dimension. So how is this different from just dancing together? Why is it important that the goddess is there? Well, it's different because our intention is different. There's a different intentionality under the gaze of the goddess. Under the watchful and protective gaze of the mother, and in the warmth of her embrace, dancers are free to play and express themselves naturally. In her presence, intentions are kept elevated and pure, ensuring that the dance becomes a tribute to the goddess and is not only a celebration of material sensory experiences. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Material dances and parties, those are all great to celebrate that, but that's not what this is. This is, we're celebrating that with an intention to keep it elevated and pure. And so most people are on their best behavior. And I just find, I said, we all play nicely when mother is watching. We're all making sure that we do the right thing. So there's no rowdiness. Usually people aren't doing, overly sensual behaviors. It's a tribute. It's a joyful one. And so that's how I'd just like to conclude that. That's was the Navaratri and Garba. And if anybody has any questions, that would be great. Thank you. Oh, sure.
We have a question from
Sure.
the internet.
Oh, sure.
And so the question is, Marlon asks, discussion of numbers 8 and 9 was very rapid.
Oh.
Could you say more about them?
Sure.
Yeah, can you repeat the question just so the
Sure.
readers?
So Marlon asked, said that the discussion, he would like to hear more about the discussion about the numerology, about the numbers 8 and 9. So to that, I would say I didn't delve too deeply into the numbers. I do know that in the Hindu traditions, the number 9 is important, 108, numbers ending in ones, 21, 31, 51. If you're going to events, that's what you'll give people money in those denominations ending in 1. But I think 9 is because it's almost 10. And once you get to 10, numerologically, you go back to 1. So it's a full, complete set. And from what I know of numerology, they're not necessarily related to Hinduism, is that 9 is a spiritual path number. So from my brief understanding of numerology, that's what my understanding is.
Can I add?
Sure.
So isn't 8 2 to the third and 9 is 3 to the second?
Oh, interesting.
Kind of unusual.
Maybe, yes. Maybe that's very possible.
Yeah.
And 8, I didn't address 8. 8 is also considered an important day. The 8th day of Navaratri is also, people fast during that time. And 8 in, again, from what little I know about numerology, the 8 is a number of, I guess, outward achievement or fame, people who are able to go out in the world and achieve things. So maybe many people fast, if they're going to fast any day, a lot of people will just fast on the 8th day to get, for success and prosperity. So that would happen. Yes.
You were saying that the dancers go in a counterclockwise
Yes.
mode, and I was wondering why, but it's also I was visualizing that. I'm wondering if, in the sense in the center, is the goddess and she's dancing clockwise.
Oh, I like that. I hadn't thought that she was dance with, but possibly. I think my understanding of that was that it's the reverse. Like going clockwise again that's how the day mode goes. We're moving on daylight hours, and that's how the senses are comfortable and familiar with moving in the day, and everything is very ordered, and we move like clockwork in our day life. But now we're reversing things. We're on her time, and we're dancing at night. And again, now it's all brightly lit up, but in the past that would have been a much bigger deal. The only lit space would have been around the goddess, and everything else would have been dark outside, and we're dancing in the reverse mode. So everything is reversed. We're celebrating the nighttime and not the day. And again, people would mix. Some communities didn't always mix together, but oftentimes still, you don't know who's going to be coming, and people would just be dancing. So I think that's the reversal, if that answered your question. Yes, Judy.
Yes, I wonder if you could say something more about the dance as a sacrifice, because you said that there's voluntary fasting, sometimes all day,
Yes.
sometimes partially. I remember one time when we went, you were fasting, and
Yes.
until the dance was over.
Yes.
And it was a feast
Yes.
that night. Could you explain more about the sacrificial nature of the dance?
Well, I think
Yeah,
that, oh, sure. So Judy was asking, Dr. Saltzman was asking about the sacrificial aspect of the dance. And during the dancing, during the Navaratri festival, people often fast for 9 days or certain set days that they determine for themselves. And the purpose of this is to sort of create a spiritual energy for yourself where you're not doing, again, what the normal things are. And many religious traditions have this, fasting or denying yourself certain normal pleasures that you would normally associate with the normal material world that you live in. You're purposefully taking yourself out of that, taking away some of the things that you're used to having and depriving yourself for for the express intent of paying attention to the spiritual. So when you're no longer paying attention to as many of your material needs, you automatically have more energy and time to pay attention to the spiritual realm. So I think that's what that is, trying to decrease our reliance on the material and keep energy and purity for the spiritual realm. And you're sacrificing, you're choosing. And again, once it's over, oftentimes there'll be a indulgence in you know, a celebratory feast, but sometimes people are able to maintain that, and then it's just a celebration with fruits and food, and so that's, I think, the purpose, to elevate ourselves. Yes. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Well, could you just elaborate? There's a lot of talk about energy, and this dance, you know, requires energy.
Yes.
Is the theory that the goddess, by this ceremony, the goddess will kind of come alive and give energy to human beings? Or is it that the human beings who are doing this dance and music, are they giving energy to the goddess?
Okay, so the question was, do the dancers receive their energy from the goddess, or are they giving her energy? So that's a very interesting question. My first instinct is to say that the goddess, which Shakti, her name is power, energy, she gives energy to the dancers, because many of the dancers have stated that, you know, we didn't know we were dancing for so long. Hours went by, and I asked myself, oh, was I dancing this long? I don't think I could keep this up. But they were able to dance. Likewise with the fasting. Sometimes the food that you're normally craving, you just stop craving it. Normally, dieting is not my forte, but I'm able to do it during Navaratri. You're in a different mode where you're given some extra strength to do that. But your question is interesting, because I think, in a sense, we keep her memory and her presence alive by doing the dancing, by participating in dance of this nature. We're also energizing that space and others' awareness of the goddess. So it is a back and forth relationship, maybe. She's giving energy to the dancers to continue to do the fasting and celebrate, and then her devotees are also giving her energy through worship and through remembrance and honoring her. So maybe it's a relation. Yes.
At the beginning, you showed some of the dances, and right away what occurred to me is that people would move this way, and then they turn and move this way. And the image that came to mind is the Janus effect. And I'm wondering, is there any meaning to the way they start one way and then they turn the other way?
So so the question was, I'm not as familiar with the Janus effect, but it was mentioned that similar to the Janus effect with the dancers moving first in one direction and the other direction, if there was any meaning to that, and there actually is, because as the dancers are whirling upon their own axis, as Jung was stating in the quote that I mentioned, the circling around the goddess is one way of activating all of the different aspects of our own psyche, but by circling around their own inner personal axis, their own axis of their own core, going back and forth, you're activating all of the different dimensions of your own psyche. You're creating your own mini circle, back and forth, back and forth. And by doing that, you're activating and addressing all of the aspects of your own psyche. And so trying to achieve kind of a circular wholeness in your own psyche by doing any kind of circular movement or painting or art.
Well, there are so many images. Just forgive me. I'll just mention some of them and we can make comments.
Sure.
One of them is, in the Western world, the male is supposed to be powerful.
Yes.
But here, it is the female who is
Yes.
very powerful.
Yes.
And without the female, nothing can happen.
Yes.
I mean, that was incredible there. And then also the idea of the female being the womb.
Yes.
You know, the source, you know. That, you know, without it, nothing can happen.
Yes, I agree.
And then also, I was struck with the whole idea of this motion
Yes.
You know, and then of course the dance,
Yeah.
you know, the movement.
It's very fun.
Somehow without the dance, nothing, you know, nothing happened. There's no joy even. Anyway, make any comments.
No, I agree. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So yeah, that is one of the things I think that is very powerful about it, that people are celebrating, they're enjoying so much, they're excited, and people don't sometimes even recognize that there's such a spiritual import to what they're doing. They're just participating, going along with it, but at the same time, there's so much symbolism associated with it. It is powerful. It is about women. Everybody's dancing and stopping just to dance and celebrate a female goddess. And I think that's a very modern, actually, idea. This is hundreds of years old. So this is not something that is very modern. It's continued on. Now, of course, a female empowerment, we need to empower women, but that's not how it was for so long. So I think this is a very important aspect of where women were uplifted, honored, they're recognized for being powerful. Now, cases can be made to say, did that continue in different aspects of life, or whether that was it reserved only for certain times? But regardless, I think it was very important that they had these festivals. And again, it wasn't just once a year. These were 4 or 5 times a year. And now this festival and the fall is the most important, but previously the spring was more important. So I think it's important to recognize that we're celebrating women, their power, the dynamic, and that we're recognizing that. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that, yes. And I felt very, it makes me very happy to see that people are recognizing that and appreciating that. And I hope that people are interested in attending some of the functions. Navaratri will be starting on September 25th. And I oftentimes wonder, you know, the Gujarati community is the one that is, because it's a Gujarati dance, garba, but other parts of India are now becoming involved in it. It's going Bollywood. That means it's becoming mainstream. You know, they're showing garba in Bollywood. And I personally feel it would be wonderful to continue being more inclusive and to bring this out into different groups, because it's just so enjoyable. I've had friends from different communities come and participate. I do let them know that there are images of the goddess in the middle. It is a religious dance, so some people are, you know, not into that aspect. So they need to recognize that's part of it. But if they're okay with that, I think people enjoying and celebrating it it's wonderful. So I'm so pleased that you enjoyed it. Yes.
You named so many different names of goddesses.
Yes.
And yet, at the same time, you seem to say they were all from the one,
Yes.
the Atman. Can you say a little bit more about why there are different ones and what you know, is there anything that you can say about the people that feel closer to a certain one over others? And
Sure.
like that?
So the question was, there are different goddesses, and why would some people be feel more close to certain goddesses versus others, and why there are so many when they're all actually just one? So I would say yes, they all are just one, but there are different aspects and manifestations of the goddess. So, for instance, one way of viewing the goddesses would be to view it as a I don't know, the right word is not triad, but with the first part being like for instance Durga, Kali, and Parvati. That would be the goddess who is destructive and powerful. So oftentimes people will view it as she's there to destroy our evil qualities. She's bloodthirsty and killing. Well, she's killing the evil aspects within ourselves, similar to kind of Tibetan Buddhist ideas of I've seen those similar ideas where we just destroy our own evil tendencies and habits. And I did notice that at times in my life when I was struggling with things, a lot of the music and the songs, prayer songs of Durga Mata would come to me, and later on when you reflect back, you realize, oh, I think that's why that was helpful to me or whatnot. But those traditional prayers and chants and worship of her are often related to that, destroying, protect me, save me from my own tendencies, from others' bad tendencies. Then the second part of Lakshmi, who is traditionally associated as being Vishnu's consort, she is worshipped for abundance, so that we gain abundance, wealth, fame. But another way of looking at this is so that we have the spiritual abundance. So we have the ability to access spiritual knowledge, and we have the ability to have enough education, knowledge, food, etc., so we can elevate ourselves to a higher level. And then the third aspect is considered Saraswati, who's the goddess of arts and learning. and she is the epitome. So Durga, Kali, and Parvati would be like the tamasic tendencies. They would call that in Hinduism the vulgar or ignorant, slothful tendencies. Those are managed by her. And then Lakshmi would perhaps be the rajasic, the more energizing aspects where you're acquiring knowledge and gaining abundance so that you can live a happy, decent, productive life. And then the third would be Saraswati, which would be the sattvic or pure, and she's always wearing white, the pure lifestyle where you would achieve the epitome in the arts or culture or in spirituality, and that would be the goal. So there is kind of a progression, but there's also recognition that they're all the same and that you have to keep working, again, circularly, you keep working on all of these different aspects of yourself. It'd be nice to just get there, but so you have to keep having the festival happen over and over. So. Yes.
So, I'm really enjoying your comments.
Thank you.
Are you ready for a hard question now?
Oh, uh-oh. Some of these were hard.
So you mentioned where there's, when you dance and sing and so forth, you feel different and you perceive differently. It's sort of, you're describing this sort of magical effect of the festival and that just overtakes you. And you even mentioned something about subatomic particles or particles, the atomic level. And so I'm wondering, because when you look at the great, the universe, whether it be the macro or the micro, there seems to be a rhythm there. There seems to be a dance.
Yes.
And yet we're looking at it like we're objective scientists. We don't go by rhythm and dance. If we did go by rhythm and dance, what would we see?
We went by rhythm and dance, and we saw the subjective. Well, I'm not the Hubble telescope, but some of those actually images were beautiful. I didn't look at all of them, but it does look like whirling galaxies. And sometimes I click on those offerings, and I'm just, it's beautiful. I think the universe is dancing, and there are actually garba songs that relate to that, where they talk about, and their prayers to Kali, the dark goddess, and they attribute her to space, and there's actual songs that actually say the earth is the center, and we're in space dancing around her, and the stars are the lights, and we're all just dancers, and then the mother calls us all to play, and we play our part, and we're dancing, and so it's the intent, even so long ago, was they recognized that we're just one and we're dancing in this play of, and that's another point too I forgot to mention, that we are playing, that it's called garba ramvao. That means they're not saying dance, they're saying come play. So we are the mother's children, and they're saying come and play now, play this game of life. And it's so people feel very tender about it, because you're encouraged to feel tender and vulnerable. And people say things like, Navaratri is coming. Mata's coming to my house. She's like a guest. She's coming to visit. People won't leave their house. So I don't leave the region at the time. They'll light some people will do the akhand jyoti, which they'll keep a light and leave that on for 9 days. It's a little bit tricky sometimes in California, people were saying, because it's a safety issue sometimes. But people will just say, she's welcome here, and you don't leave the house when a guest comes. You just stay there, and they just will stay there worshiping, or they might leave the house here and there, but they don't, leave far. So I like it was a tricky question. But yeah. Yes.
In mythology, often the mother will be both the mother and the husband, as well as the daughter. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about how that works. And also, where does Hiranyagarbha fit into the portrait?
The Hiranyagarbha. So I guess the Hiranyagarbha, it's the cosmic womb. Robert was asking about the goddess being the mother and the husband and the daughter, and also about
the wife.
The wife, the mother and the wife, the mother and the wife and the child. So those are, I think, those are different aspects of a woman's nature. And that's similar, I think, to some other, like for instance, Greek mythology with the maiden, the mother, and the crone. That sort of mythology where a woman's, all of her different aspects are acknowledged and recognized and worshipped in her different aspects. And that's why young girls are worshipped during this time. They'll be given gifts of 8 girls or 9 girls on the 8th or 9th day will be collected, and they'll be given gifts, and they'll be given food and candy, and they'll be worshipped because they'll be honored for their young youth. And then the dance, of course, is young women are celebrating that with also the children, and then the elderly are also acknowledged and valued. So a woman's different aspects, because there are certain ritual prayers that usually younger people will do them, but they don't do them as frequently. Like as people get more mature in their spiritual development, they'll take on more complicated rituals, fasting, prayers, and chanting. And so the younger kids mostly want to dance. So there are different things that people in different age groups will do to kind of show their devotion. They may not be dancing as much, but then they'll be taking on different prayers or fasts or different other things, or mentoring other people and things like that. Yes, Judy.
Well, the goddesses, I don't think you mentioned Aditi, who's the goddess of infinity. And this brings to mind the idea that really space is a great womb. And the Yavana guru, Pythagoras, says that if the human race would just be quiet for 1 minute, we could hear the music of the spheres. Perhaps they're all moving around the goddess. In this case, Surya, the sun, is a male god, but it all fits in. We have to have the balance in the universe and the music.
Well, the music is very powerful. I think maybe the music is meant to elevate us into maybe a sense of quiet appreciation. I liked what you were saying. Judy was saying that the space is Aditi is the goddess of the infinite and the space. If humans could be quiet, then we could hear that music of the spheres, and maybe that's like the sound of Om, or reflected differently, I guess, at different places. I like that. It's nice. Oh,
Oh, okay.
okay, go ahead.
I will, thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't see you.
I'd like to ask you if you could stand up and sort of show us the basic step.
Oh my goodness.
And what I gathered from what I saw, just generally speaking, is it's all moving counterclockwise, and it appeared that if you're moving kind of in a circle, that you're moving to your left. That's what it appeared. But if you could show me as much as you can as basic.
I guess I can show you a little bit. I can show you a little. So it's. I guess I'll show you a little bit. It's kind of similar to what you saw on the screen. So when people are, there'll be something in the middle, and people will often, it's like a 4-beat note, and people it's just 3 and then 4. That's just the most basic.
Is there a step together step?
No, and then the other motions will be like twirling forward and back. So they'll just move forward and they'll move back, and that's just all it is, just around a circle.
Okay.
So that's yeah. It's not complicated, or it's just the togetherness, I think. And then people get fast and they dance together and they get energized. And it would have been nice if my daughter was thinking of coming, and I think she would have been able to demonstrate a little bit more easily. But I don't want to. Yeah. Oh no, I've set something off. Yeah, I didn't want to. That's the sound of the spheres.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, that's fine.
Do most Hindus regard the gods and goddesses as metaphorical beings or as anthropomorphic beings?
So I think the question was, do most Hindus regard the gods as metaphorical beings or as like mythological or anthropomorphical beings? So I think it depends on the person. I think there's some people will take it very literally, and there are always people like that who will view it in a very concrete manner. They're dogmatic about things like that in terms of where gods are born or the locations of temples. And I suppose that has some value also, because there are charged areas and people have benefited from those areas and from worshiping there. But I think many people do see that there's at least a partial, mythological or metaphorical thing. It's hard to fully see that it's just totally cut and dry. So I think people have a mixed view of it.
Do you have any sense of the proportions, like is it 50-50?
I wouldn't know. I think that's maybe more of a personal, each individual has a personal feel of the relationship with the divine, whether they take it literally or whether they're more flexible and willing to see it as be more open or fluid with their belief in the divine.
What do the regular Orthodox Hindu Brahmanas think about this tradition? Do they welcome it, or do they see it's kind of a, it's a little bit of, it's off the shelf, so to speak. It's not real Hinduism, in terms of chants and theory and whatever.
I think that this is a very popular tradition. So all most Gujaratis, at least, and other Hindus, strongly believe and participate in this. There was a time, I think, when certain groups were not allowed. They wouldn't let their women go out and dance or participate. It was more of like a protective based, we sit and we sing, we won't go out and participate. But I think that's a lot to do with being protective, being more conservative, because it's very free. The dancing environment is you don't know who's going to be dancing next to you. It's a spiritual environment, but you're dancing with potential strangers at some places. So sometimes people would keep it to a family or a small community hall, and it depends what type of energy you're looking for in the dance. Again, small children maybe would not be taken to such a large venue because they could get lost, or so it depends. But I think some people did not want as much of mixing, or they wanted to select their groups, and some people frowned on dancing. As with many religions, some people were not fans of dancing as a expressive arts. They would rather sing or do things that were more conservative. But on the whole, in Gujarat, this dance is welcomed by everyone. It's very joyously celebrated, and people don't expect not to be dancing with people of all different areas. It's expected. That's kind of one of the fun things, to dance with everybody.
Internet question.
Oh, sure.
This is a question from Nancy.
Okay.
She says, in some villages, a young girl was chosen and kept as a goddess for a period of time. Have they stopped that practice, or have you heard anything about that practice?
So, I don't think I need to repeat the question, right? You said no,
you probably should.
Oh, okay. So the question from Nancy was, in some villages, people have kept a woman or a young girl as a goddess for 9 days, and she was wondering if this practice continues. I believe it does. I had been to Nepal a long time ago, and that practice continues there. We had seen something along those lines. They often will take a young girl and they'll anoint her as the goddess, and she'll just play that role for 9 days. So it's similar to when on the 8th or 9th day, 8 or 9 girls are gathered and they're worshipped and fed and given small gifts. It's a way of that individual to embody the goddess role, and it's an honor for them, and they get to kind of play, act, and feel special, and it's probably a lifetime, joy for them. So that's great for them. I think it does continue in some places.
Until today, I thought garba and
Dandiya
were
wrestling.
mostly folk dances. And I often associate, especially the part where they use sticks.
Yes.
And it was kind of like a celebration of agricultural work or a harvest time or something. So is there part of that too? And
Yes.
maybe do they actually, given that there's a connection possibly with agriculture, do they celebrate the different solstices and the equinox periods? Because you mentioned spring and fall.
Yes, I think you're probably right about that. So the question was whether it's similar or not to because whether it's related to the harvest times and the astrological or astronomical periods, the equinox periods. I think you're probably right about that. I think it is they are folk dances because India has a strong tradition of classical dance, and those are very strictly regimented. And these are folk dances that are open. Those take many years to learn, and they're you know, you have to learn from a certain lineage, and there's a very certain hierarchical way of learning, whereas these folk dances are open to everybody, and they're very fluid and they're free. So I think they are folk dances. You're absolutely right about that. And I think they are connected with the harvest times, with the planting times, and that's because the goddess is fertile. I wish I could speak more about that. I don't know the specifics to answer right now, but you're right. They are related to those time periods and to the goddess. And one of the rituals involves planting seeds and watching them grow. So one of the rituals will plant different barley seeds, or some people will plant like 9 different grains, and then as you water them, and there's like a coconut atop there, and that symbolizes the goddess. And as the grains grow, that means that she's bringing fertility and growth and prosperity to your life as you watch the grains grow. She's associated with fertility and growth. So,
when you said that last thing about the planting of the 9 seeds, I just wanted to share, I heard this really interesting story from Vandana Shiva that she learned from farmers as she went around India, that sometimes they plant 9 different plants that have to do with special parts of the body
interesting.
that help for, you know, a holistic diet, so to speak, in their lives. So,
Oh, I like that. That's interesting. I wonder if that's connected to goddess worship too, or in some way. I should look that up. Interesting. Thank you. Sir. Yes.
You spoke about Kal-Yum,
Yes.
and light and dark,
Yes.
and how to, you know, and we also thought of Chinese, you know, Chinese Taoism,
Yes.
where you have yin yang, but they all have to be, you know, they all have to be included in a circle,
Yes.
you know, and they have to work harmoniously.
Yes.
So, and then we also thought of, I mean, you know, the Sufis. They, you know, actually, I was reminded of this whirling. The
Yes.
Sufis, you know, where they dance round, you know.
It's very similar.
Around the center, and
Yes.
and it said that they, you know, when they do that, they end up being ecstatic, you know, and experience transcendence. Anyway, it's just impressions. I don't know what you want to say anything.
No, I agree. I think this the Sufis dancing is beautiful, and they stay so centered and balanced, and they're whirling and then they're whirling. I'm not very familiar with it, just the basics. I might have seen briefly some of it, but they're dancing on their own axis and then in synchronization with other people and mimicking the heavens, and so that is very similar to that. And I really like the image that you just portrayed of the dark and the white within a circle of the yin-yang sort of symbol. So that's very similar to that, containing both the good and the bad. And so it did remind me also that, you know, within the circle, our good and bad natures are both there, and we're circling through all of that. And good and bad experiences happen when you're in the garba circle, like as when you're in any activity with people who are dancing and hot and tired. So it's interesting. You do get to see your own reactions, and you have an opportunity to experience all of that. So thank you for that. Oh, no, that's fine. So if those. Oh, sure. No, that's good. Thank you so much for letting me present this topic to you. I enjoyed sharing this with you, and I welcome everyone to look up for local Navaratri events in your area. I think, again, sometimes the Indian community doesn't always outlook and reach out to invite people in them. We just have their events in the local community, but sometimes they're receptive to that. So I think it's wonderful if more people participate. That's all.
Well, I'm going to give a vote of thanks, and then if you can stay for just a couple more seconds, because I'd like to update you on a few things coming up. Okay? So we feel just this great joy and enthusiasm and the energy through your presentation, Shefali, that was shown so well through the video of the garba dance. And we're so grateful to you for giving us that beautiful experience. And if we think about in cultures, gratitude, reverence, and devotion really help to strengthen communities. And it really seems as if you were showing us a mode that's regular and repeated, just like the seasons of regenerating society with that devotion together. And also that one of the strong points of what you explained, I think, was how this happens at an individual level, but it also happens at the level where you transcend the individual and become one with the community, but also with the highest spiritual forces. And so the way that you brought out the symbolism of that between the teachings, the chants, the texts, the dancing, expressing that, made us feel that we could connect with the spiritual, with the communal, with the individual, and with the very highest forces in the universe if we so choose. It was lovely to hear how the psychological aspect of what Jung said and how it gives us so much appreciation of the symbolism of things. And especially well done was the circle and all the meanings of the circle, and seeing it from above with so many people. It was a mandala to see all these people circling, and then all the people who just wanted to watch and be a part of it. And so I feel that what we have really today is a wonderful regeneration in our minds of what happens in other cultures, but also an opportunity within ourselves to try. Maybe do a little dance at home.
Yes, why not? Coming up.
Yeah, and then I guess just thank you, Shafali. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. That feels so good to hear. Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Beautifully done.
Thank you so much.
And then thank everyone here and at home who were here patiently listening and were completely involved and creatively responding with so many good questions. And also, I just want to let people know that the next opportunity to get together will be the study circle, which resumes next Tuesday on the 20th. Yeah, 20th at 7:30 to about 9 p.m. And if you would like to, you can go on the website to find out how to get a Zoom link if you'd like to watch